John McCoy, a respected tribal elder and veteran, has held a multitude of jobs for the Tulalip tribes. These positions impacted the Tulalip Reservation and led John on a path to have a positive impact on Washington State. Hibulb Conversations sat down with John to hear his story. Hi, I'm Mytyl Hernandez. Welcome to Hibulb Conversations. Today we're here with John McCoy. Welcome to the show, John.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
So nice to see you. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you were born and when?
I was born on the Tulalip Reservation in the old government hospital that was where the clinic is now.
Okay.
And about 6 months after I was born, it burnt down.
Oh.
So, and at the time, there were some cottages behind the Catholic Church, and that's where my mom and I lived. My dad was in the Navy in 43 during World War II. He was deployed. So, so that's where I started out life, and that began in 1943.
And do you have siblings?
I have a brother who passed away recently, 3 sisters, but the oldest sister passed away a few years ago. One sister lives in Las Vegas, and the other one, Carolyn, lives here at Tulalip.
And where are you in the order?
I'm the oldest.
Oh, you are? Okay. And did you grow up in Tulalip?
Because my dad was in the Navy and he made it a career.
Mm-hmm.
He spent 30 years in the Navy.
Wow.
We were up and down the West Coast.
Okay.
My K-12 life was at 14 different schools.
Oh my goodness.
So I did okay.
Mm-hmm.
I got all my credits and everything. So it wasn't too bad.
It's a lot of moving.
Yeah, it was. But most of the time we were in San Diego.
Okay.
We moved around in San Diego. Chula Vista, National City, El Cajon, Claremont. So
how many different high schools did you attend?
I attended 3.
Okay.
The last one for 2 years.
Okay. And what school did you end up graduating from?
I graduated from El Capitan High,
Okay.
which was in Lakeside, California, which is a suburb of San Diego, east of San Diego.
And then what did you do after high school?
My cousin, Art Contrero, was in Los Angeles, and he had graduated at the same time. So he drove down the day after graduation. He drove down to San Diego, picked me up, and brought me up here.
Oh, okay.
And so I started off fishing from my cousin Ray Sheldon, but then I moved on to fish for Martin Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Martin treated me good, but as you know, fishing around here is hard work.
Yes.
And quite honestly, I got tired of being cold and wet all the time.
Yeah, and yelled at. Yeah.
And so in November 1961, I joined the Air Force.
Okay.
And went down to Lackland. That's where basic training is at.
Mm-hmm.
And after basic training, I was sent to Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. And did communications school. And then once I was done with that, I was sent back to Lackland for cryptography school. And once I completed that, I was shipped to Turkey. And then after Turkey, I was sent to Germany. Spent a year and a half there. And then I was shipped to Blaine, Washington. And the Air Force had a radar site up there. That I worked in the communications center. And that's where Jeannie and I started seeing one another and eventually got married in January '65. And then later that year, December that year, then I was sent to Clark Air Base, Philippines. Jeannie joined me 8 months after that.
In the Philippines?
In the Philippines. And there, that was difficult. She got a job at the base hospital in the records department. And she had a hard time with it because all the wounded out of Vietnam came through there. And so the hospital was so overwhelmed. There were troops who were in the hallways, wherever they could put them.
Right.
And she had to run around, deliver records, and were constantly near them. And as she put it, most of those troops were still in their battle gear.
Yeah.
And so that was hard. And then where I worked on the base in the beginning was across the street from the morgue.
Oh.
And so consequently, there were flatbed trucks piled high. And then the Air Force decided that I needed to get into communications computers. So they reassigned me there on Clark to a facility that did that kind of work. Then in March '68, we were shipped to Scott Air Force Base, Illinois. Well, I got there, and like I said, the Air Force cross-trained me into computer communications. And, well, Scott didn't have that job on there. So, but we could only do one PCS move during one fiscal year. So we had to kind of hang out there for a while, and then once the fiscal year changed, then they shipped us to Tinker Air Force Base, Oklahoma. There is what I did. I operated a test facility for programmers. And so they did programming work on these computers, and I maintained the equipment and did various jobs. While there, the test facility grew. Our initial place was off base in the test facility. But because I was getting more and more computers, and they were rather large, I was moved on base and operated the equipment there. And I had 3 people helping me. So that was, and while doing that, I worked with programmers in operating equipment and working with them and doing things. And one of the things, a team was created to develop, at the time the Air Force called it the ARPANET. Today it's called the Internet.
Oh.
And so we launched the ARPANET, strangely, on my birthday, October 29, 1969.
And at this point, how long had you been in the Air Force then?
Well, November 61,
Okay.
and that happened in October 69, so that was 8 years.
8 years. 8 years, and you had lived in Turkey, Germany, Blaine, Philippines, Illinois, and then Oklahoma. That's a lot too.
Yeah. So we stayed there for 5 years.
Okay.
And in 70, the Air Force decided I should become a computer programmer.
Okay.
So I went off to programming school. That was a 4-month school at Biloxi, Mississippi, Keesler Air Force Base. And Jeannie had to stay in Oklahoma while I did that. And 3 girls.
I was just going to ask.
Yeah. So Angie got to see the Philippines.
Was she born in the Philippines?
No,
Okay.
she was born Everett.
Okay.
And then Sheila was born at Scott Air Force Base. And then while at Tinker, Kara was born.
Okay.
So, like I said, we stayed 5 years in Oklahoma. And then was transferred to San Antonio, to Randolph Air Force Base, where I provided on-site service for some computers that we installed down there and took care of its computer programs. And then we stayed there for 5 years.
Yeah. And just so amazing to me, because at this time in the late 60s and 70s, I mean, nobody had computers in their home, just big companies, and here you were programming them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then while I was at Randolph, again, we were there for 5 years, I was asked to take an assignment to Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland.
Okay.
And I struggled with that decision, but then I decided, okay, I'll do it. And so we were transferred to Andrews.
Yeah. First time on the East Coast then,
Yeah,
really.
first time on the East Coast. And so Jeannie got a job with the BIA.
Okay.
And I did my work right on Andrews. I could walk to work.
That's nice.
Yeah. And so that's where most of the girls' education happened. Then my 20 years was coming up, and I decided to get out. And the Air Force wanted me to stay in, and they were willing to give me a spot promotion to stay. And I just decided no.
Yeah.
Time to get a better job. So I let it be known that I was going to get out. And I told them what date, that approximate date that would be. And I started working on my resume but I never completed it because I got 6 offers from various companies to come work for them. And so then it was deciding which one to go for. I selected the one with the best benefits package. And that was with, at the time, it was Sperry Univac. And then in 85, 86, we merged with Burroughs, and the new name of the company became Unisys.
And where was that based out of?
I was based out of McLean, Virginia.
Okay.
So I had those offers, and I made the decision which company. And so I went to work for them. And where I was working at the Air Force, because there was a project that wasn't done yet, and so the Air Force felt it was crucial that to the project to get it done, that they asked Unisys to keep me there for a while.
Oh.
So is what happened. I retired on Friday in uniform, and then Monday morning in civilian clothes, I was
They're
at
contracted.
the same desk, contracted. And so that was about 3-4 months. And then I finished that up, and so I went to my office in McLean, Virginia, and went and seen my boss, and he said I was assigned, they had the contract with the White House Communications Agency, and they needed some work done, and they thought I'd be a good fit in doing that, so they were sending me down to the White House.
Wow.
Well, so we were developing a communication system for the White House. The White House was a manual operation at the time, and our assignment was to automate them.
Okay. And who was in office?
Reagan.
Okay.
And so we started out there in McLean in our office building, and developed a system and got it working. And so once we did that, that was about 6 months. And then we transferred down to the White House, took the equipment down there. And so we got it installed, and my area of responsibility was the Situation Room. So that's, the Situation Room is the hub of the activity. But you can get so busy in there, you don't know what's going on around you. And that's what happened to me. I had no idea what them guys were doing because I was too busy getting their computers to use to do their job. And so consequently, that's what I was doing. And like I say, Ronald Reagan was president at the time. And so one of the funny things there, Ronald Reagan liked Jelly Bellies.
Oh, the jelly bean?
Yeah,
Okay.
the Jelly Bellies.
Yeah.
Well, not the other.
Very specifically.
Very specific. And so all around the White House in these saucer trays were Jelly Bellies, all over. And So Reagan, as he walked by, he picks them up and he'd eat them. And so whenever I walk by, I dip in, take 2 or 3.
Jelly bellies, yeah.
Yeah, all day long. And then, so I had quite a few. So when I got home, the girls would greet me at the door. And, you know, they wouldn't give me a hug, but they'd put their hand in my coat pocket to get the Jelly Bellies.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In the beginning at the White House, I was just an everyday programmer doing the job. And as time went on, I wound up the site manager.
And how long did you work in the White House?
4 years.
And then what did you do after? Or what made you decide to leave?
Well, this was 86.
Okay.
And when I finished at the White House, picking everything up and got everything put together and moved out, and then I reported back to the office at McLean. And my boss said, I decided to retire and you're taking my spot.
Oh.
So I was a full-time manager. And so I had sites all over the United States that I had to take care of. And I had to go see those sites and visit them once in a while. So about every 6-7 months, I'd take flights around the country and wind up, and those took about 3-4 weeks.
Wow.
And I racked up a lot of air miles.
I bet you did.
Back then, you know, they gave away miles like crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to get them now. Yeah.
And first class seating.
Yes.
And so I got a lot of those. So guess who got to go home and see Mama a lot?
That's awesome.
And flying first class.
Okay. All the way across the coast.
All the way.
And you were still in the Virginia, Maryland area?
Yeah, we were living in Manassas, Virginia.
Okay.
And Stan, Chairman Jones, whenever he'd come back to the East Coast, to D.C., to lobby or whatever it is he was doing back there, any Tulalips in the area, he would
take
us to dinner.
Yeah, I've heard that he did that. I love it. College students, everything.
Yeah, so that's what he did. And then he started recruiting me to come home. And I kept resisting, and finally one day, on one of those trips, you know, he's leaning on me to come home, and I just told him, I said, Stan, you have no work for me.
Right.
I'm a computer programmer. You don't have any
What am I going to do?
Yeah, you don't have any computers to program. And so the next trip he comes back and he keeps trying to recruit me. And I said, Stan, you have nothing for me. And he says, but I want you to come back and develop that job. Well, then that was about the time the .com industry was getting hit pretty hard. And people were getting laid off, and I had to lay off some of my crew. And I hated that.
Yeah.
So we got through that. And then a few months later, we had to do it again.
Oh, no.
They had to lay some people off, and got through that. And then and a few months went by, and it had to do it again.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that was really hurting. And I wasn't seeing much of a future for me either. And so I called Stan.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked if the offer was still there, and he said it was. And so I had went home and told Jeannie, I said, well, I got to lay off some more people. How about if I lay myself off and we go home? Well, she couldn't leave fast enough.
Oh, she was already packed and ready to go.
Yeah, she was ready to go. Been ready for years. And so that's when we came home.
What year was that, you think?
That was December '93.
Okay.
It's where I got initiated to tribal politics, which was pretty brutal. But anyway, that's when I started doing the development work and creating Coal Cedar Village. We had a good team. Peter Mills, Tom, and the others. It was just a good team to work with, and everybody knew what they had to do, and you didn't have to tell them what to do. We every week we'd gather and we'd talk about what we needed to do and how we'd go about it. And that's when I went down to the lawyer's office and I asked them, I said, I know it's never been done, but if we're to be successful, we need to get at the taxes. So how do we get at the taxes? So how should this project that we're working on, how should we construct it so that if the state steps back from the taxes, and how do we get at them?
Mm-hmm.
So Mike looked at me and he laughed and he said, we've been trying to do this for 500 years and you think you can do it?
Mike Taylor?
Yeah. And I said, Mike, I'm just asking the question. I don't know if I can do it. So I'm asking, if there's a way, how do we do it? Well, at the time, he was also a UW law professor. And so he got 3 students to take that on as a class project.
Okay.
So they worked on it for 3 years. And then Mike brought the project back and he said, well, here it is. And I said, well, that's a lot of paper there.
Give me the short version, yeah.
Give me the short version. And he said, okay. The tribe has to own the land. Okay.
Check that off the list, yeah.
Yep, you did that. The tribe has to manage it. And that's me.
Yep. Check.
Check. It has to be on trust land. Check.
Yeah, we're ready.
And I just stared at him and I said, is that all? We just then decided that we'd create the municipality.
So what year was that then?
That was in 93.
98.
99.
Okay. And so is that the year that Cool Cedar Village became a municipality of Toledo?
No, that was October
Okay.
2001.
Okay.
But we had to get everything set up to go that way.
Yeah.
And so
That's when the decision was made.
Yeah. And so put it all together. Everybody, had something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And including the board, they had to pass a lot of resolutions
Yeah.
and things. So everybody was involved. Everybody had a part in that.
Yeah.
And so we put it together. And then we discovered that the state wasn't collecting all the taxes that they could.
Oh. So we helped him out?
So we constructed our tax code to take advantage of that.
Good.
And took them.
I like it.
We took it. We let the state know what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they couldn't find a reason to take those taxes, so
We did.
we did.
Yeah.
And that's how the police department and the pharmacy got put together.
Yeah.
It's because of those taxes.
Mm-hmm. From the city of Cool Cedar Village.
Yep.
Yep.
Then the Premium Outlet Mall, those folks
Mm-hmm.
showed up at my door and they said that they liked what we were doing. And, let me back up. In 2000, I went over to Everett Community College and talked to the president over there and asked him if he would educate students, engineers for networking and programmers. If you educate them in the morning, could I have them in the afternoon?
Mm-hmm.
He said he'd have to think about that. So anyway, I, drove from his office back to my office, and there was an email and 2 voicemails from him, and him asking me to put the concept on paper.
Okay.
So I sat down and cranked out a 2-page concept and sent it over to him. And a couple of weeks later, he called me up and asked me to meet him there at the college. And so I went over to his office, and his secretary said, "Oh, he's down in the boardroom waiting on you." Okay, so I down to and I walk into that room, and the room was packed, and Charlie was the only one I knew. I didn't know any of the others. So Charlie introduced me, and it was Bill Erdley and the students that were in classes.
Mm-hmm.
And but they were the UW Bothell.
Okay.
And there were a few there at Everett Community College, but most of them were at Bothell. And so they made a presentation. It looked pretty good. I offered up some suggestions, and from the user point of view, so he made the tweaks and showed them to me, and I said, okay, let me try and get an audience with the board. And so I was convinced the board to listen to Dr. Erdley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dr. Erdley, being the educator he is, he had the students do the presentation.
Perfect.
So they did the presentation to the board. And as you know, the board doesn't always act quickly. Well, they did that day.
Yeah.
Les Parks made the motion. They all accepted it. And I think it's what they liked best about it was that the project was shown to go in stages, and they didn't have to have all the money up front.
Right. They could build it.
They could build it. And that we would get as many of our tribal members to participate, and go from there.
Yeah.
So they gave us the authorization to move forward, and that's what we did.
Yeah.
And we got the internet and the broadband and
Started
all that.
TDS.
Yep.
Wow.
Which is now Salish Networks today.
Yes.
We got to moving on, and as you and others know, those students were like ants all over this reservation, doing their work. And they got the job done, and so we have Salish Networks today.
Wow. Well, at what point did you start getting into politics with Washington state government?
Summer of '94.
Okay. Right after you came home?
Yes, because the tribe said that they needed someone to go back east and make sure no federal laws interfered with our project.
Okay, so you're doing governmental affairs.
Yeah, so I was doing governmental affairs, and
Did you continue doing the governmental affairs work while you were working to build Quilceda Village and the data services as well?
yes.
Okay, so you did all those jobs.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, and then in 2001, we needed to have our work done so that we could open the big casino, and that was 2007. And but we had to get sewer, get water, and so in the beginning, I tried negotiating with the city of Marysville. That didn't go well.
Right.
So I asked Darrell Williams to find the latest and greatest environmentally correct sewer system there is. And he came back with two systems, the Xenon and the Kubota. And so he briefed me on the Xenon system, and very labor intensive. So I wasn't thrilled with that. And the Kubota system showed a lot of promise. But the problem there wasn't any of them in
In the U.S.
in the United States. So we had to figure out how we were going to get this done through the U.S. government and in the state. So Mike said, just use your sovereignty. And I said, that sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah.
So that's what we did.
And had the Kubota brought.
Yeah, we gathered the federal folks that needed to be informed in the state. And we had a big meeting. Tom pulled that meeting together for us in Seattle. So we went down to Seattle. We briefed them on what it was we were going to do, what we were going to use, and that the system would be tied to the network, which was being installed on the reservation at the time. And so we'd give those folks that needed it the ability to access our network and see what the system was doing anytime they wanted.
Sure.
But you can't tell us we can't do it.
Right.
So we got that done. And so it's up there running, doing quite nicely. And that's when Seattle Premium Outlet come around and said they were interested. So we struck a deal with them.
Yeah.
There they are.
But you had been a state legislator before Seattle Premium Outlets, though. What year did you start doing that?
I was elected in 2002.
Okay.
And so I started January 2003.
Okay. So not too long before then, almost right around the same time.
Yep.
Yeah. And how long, tell us about your career as a state legislator, because you were also still the general manager of Quilceda Village.
Yeah. So I was doing both jobs. And then I was doing okay in both jobs. But then it was I decided to retire from the tribe. My thought process was, well, the tribe knows what to do.
Yeah.
And so they don't need me to do a lot of that work. They could do it. And so I retired in 2010 and kept legislating. That was a lot of, that was fun. I wasn't thrilled with retiring from there, but health issues were getting the best of me, and so 2018 I retired.
As a senator, though, right?
Right.
Right. So how long were you a state representative for?
From 2003 to 2013.
Okay, and how did that lead you to running for the Senate? Am I saying that right? Running for to be a senator? Okay.
Well, it is what happened. The sitting senator decided to retire.
Okay.
So then there's a process, an appointment process that we go through to see who gets appointed to finish the term out. But then they got to turn around and run the next year.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was lucky because the term was up that time, so it was an easy progression.
Did it seem pretty seamless for you moving into that new role? Yeah. You know, it's always been a big source of pride for this community, having a tribal member and tribal elders serve for the state. We worked on a lot of get out the vote campaigns, and everyone was always behind you. Super proud. What were some of your most memorable accomplishments from your time serving as a legislator?
The whole thing was great. And my first major piece of legislation was a piece of legislation that recovered lost wages. That's what I called it, but the labor unions called it wage theft, which caused some issues, but anyway, is what was happening. There were actually some companies that would deliberately not pay the last paycheck.
Oh. Regardless of how many hours.
Right. And so the state of Washington came and seen me, and they said, this has always been a problem. It's been the #1 issue for the labor union, but we want to show you what you be getting into. And it was millions of dollars.
Wow.
Mostly young people, that last paycheck was $500 to $700, which was a lot of money to them.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I convinced a Republican to sign on with me, which was difficult. But we got it done and got that passed. So.
Well, that's big.
Yep. So it's still functioning law. Then since time immemorial, that was big.
That is big, yeah.
And the dentist, it took me 12 years to get that one done. The Dental Association fought me the whole way. You know, to you and I, that was simple. It's, you know, they're dental hygienists. Why do they have to have a dentist standing over them to do their job? When you go now to the dentist office, where's he? Someplace in the building.
Right. Stops in and says hello.
Yeah. And the dental hygienist does. So why can't we, just allow the tribes to do that? And at the Dental Association, they were death on that, so they kept fighting me. And they had always come into my office in Olympia, and they said, "When are you going to stop fighting us?" And I said, "When I start seeing dentists on the reservation."
Yeah.
You guys don't show. You keep telling me you're going to go out, and you don't.
Right.
So I'm going to keep doing it. There was that one, and there were a number of other education bills that I worked on.
Yeah. And so what year did you end up retiring? Reluctantly, you said?
Yeah. 2020.
Oh, newly retired.
Yeah.
An even longer career then, starting in the Air Force and done so much. Is there anything through all of your positions and companies and countries and times that you wish you could have done or did but wish you could change? Nope.
No, a lot of people ask me that question. I said,
Nope.
there's not a day I don't regret
Yeah.
because I learned something from it.
Right. And as we wrap up here today, I just want to really thank you for taking the time and sitting with me this morning. Do you have any advice for our young people that might be watching?
They just need to keep plugging along. Things will work out. You know, there are 3 different careers. You notice I talked about 3 different careers.
Yep.
Well, each career I learned something that I took to the next career.
Right.
So everything is connected and you grow.
Yep. Keep plugging along.
Yep,
Thank you so much for being here with me today.
sure.
And thank you for watching. I'm Mytyl Hernandez. Until next time.